for the Warriors. Can you believe what you have just seen?
G'day and welcome to the Game Day Squad Rugby League Fantasy Show. I'm Dyl, that's Stu, and we are the Fantasy Bros. We've partnered with Game Day Squad once again to bring you everything you need to know to succeed in this season's Rugby League competition. Stu, welcome, mate. We are 4 team previews down. We have one team preview left to go. Which teams are in the spotlight tonight, and what can viewers and listeners expect from the show?
Yeah, g'day, Dyl. G'day, everyone. Thanks for tuning in once again. We're just over 2 weeks away from Vegas. Cannot wait. Yeah, look, tonight's 3 teams under the spotlight are the St. George Dragons, the Sydney Roosters, and the West Tigers, who unfortunately have that round 1 bye. As always, we'll be previewing their ins and outs for this brand new season. We'll talk about any positional changes from last year. We'll put some players under the spotlight in terms of who we're going to target for the primetime Thursday, Friday special comp, and of course the Fantasy Bros special comp, the Sunday Showdown. We'll talk about the under 24 guns as well, and a preview for that will be coming out pretty soon, shortly as well. And I know you and I are both super excited about getting some of those youngsters into our squads and watching how they go and develop into some of the NRL's elite. We'll talk about a couple of our favourite players across those 3 teams, and as always, we'll finish with a nice big pack opening, and all 9 cards will be in the player pool giveaway. So if you haven't already taken part in that player pool giveaway, you'd be silly to miss out. Hopefully we hit a banger tonight, but you can certainly go back through the rest of those videos on our YouTube page, on Apple or Spotify. Make sure you like those videos and comment your team MVPs to be in the draw for those awesome player cards. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But fingers crossed still that we can finish on something big.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of luck lately. You don't want to miss out on that competition. We've had a Adam Fanua-Blake Diamond. We've had a Platt Payne-Haas and a Platt Cleary all in that giveaway. So some great cards there. We've had some young blokes in there as well. So, yeah, fingers crossed for a big one tonight. Maybe we can get a legend into that giveaway as well. You also don't want to miss signing up to Game Day Squad if you haven't already done so. There is plenty of time, but you want to get in quick. We've got a code that you can use to sign up. It is FBRL26. Do that when you're first signing up. There's a special promo code section that you can use there, and you're going to receive 3x9 player common pack straight away. Once you do get in and you have your login sorted, you've got your sign up done, you can actually go through a list of checkpoints, and some of them are open your first pack, put up a trade on the market, etc. And that gets you more packs. You're also going to get a whole lot of bronze packs to start off as well. So you're going to have plenty of cards to build that dynasty squad without even lifting a finger pretty much. You just need to type in your code and a couple of little details. So great way to get started. So there's no better time than now. As well as that, we've got a little special coming out very soon with our textbook, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. So don't forget that that's coming out very soon, and we're going to have some special things going along with that. Alrighty, mate, let's jump straight into our team previews today. As you said, St. George Illawarra Dragons, Sydney Roosters, West Tigers. Do you want to start with the Dragons? How did they go last season? What are their ins and outs? And in particular, what are those primetime and Sunday fixtures looking like?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. A very disappointing 15th last season. And a big reason for that is probably a heap of injuries throughout the season, but also some pretty poor play in the halves, and the outside backs were scoring points, but also leaking plenty of points as well. A couple of big injuries in the forward pack, and a couple of up-and-coming guns that are going to play a big role in that under-24 comp this year that we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, I think the Dragons have to improve on last year's 15th. But unfortunately, they don't have too many key ins, do they? Daniel Atkinson comes over from the Sharks to hopefully add a bit of stability there in the halves, and he could be what they need. A bit of an organizer, a bit of a running half who's got obviously a couple of good games under the belt from his time at the Cronulla Sharks, and the Dragons will certainly be hoping that he can bring something to their halves, and they're desperately crying out for a decent halfback there. Joshy Kerr comes in as well. I don't know if he's going to get too much game time there, but they do lose Jack de Belin and David Clemmer from the forward pack, and Lockie Ilias goes over to the Titans. Not too much in terms of role changes there at the Dragons, other than Toby Couchman. Unfortunately, you and I saw him as a bit of a cheat code. We could slot him in as an edge forward player last season. He's now had a positional upgrade back to the middle where he has been playing most of his matches. He did play a couple on the edge. So that second row tag wasn't the worst, but now he's amongst the Payne Haas's and the Terrell Mays and the Isaiah Yo's of the world. We can't just slot him in for free in that second row spot. But spoiler, I am super keen on him again this season, provided he returns well from a couple of injuries that derailed the back end of last season. What is pretty good for St. George Illawarra Dragons fans is that they will be turning out on 10 occasions during the Fantasy Bros Sunday Showdown. There aren't too many key players that we like from the Dragons. They've got a couple of stars that will be getting plenty of game times for us on Sundays. But we just need to look at that under 24 eligible players list. And gee, there are some exciting names there. Toby Couchman, Dylan Egan, probably set to return between probably round 8 and round 10 from that ACL. And gee, he was certainly showed a lot of promise in his short stint in the NRL before that injury. Hamish Stewart, a lot like Toby Couchman, a very promising young forward there as well. We got Pacifica Tonga and even Tyrell Sloan if you're game enough to take a bit of a gamble on someone that could score 6 or 106.
Yes, definitely. Look, I do like that man, Hamish Stewart, there, as you talked about, back to Bellin out of the side. So there could be a likelihood of Hamish Stewart slotting into that lock role there. We saw a couple of times he played lock last season. He also played in the back row a bit, coming off the bench as well. He did have one game with 80 minutes in the second row. He was only able to get sort of half a point per minute that he was on the field for there, about 40 points or just over 40 points in that game. But he also had a few games at 55 and 60. So I really like that sort of opportunity from him. And if we can see that a little bit more and maybe that points per minute going up a little bit, I think he's going to be one of the best plays in the forward pack this season, particularly in that under 24 side. But I think the key, as you touched on, is Toby Couchman for sure. We're going to have at least 3, 4, 5 of Toby Couchman cards because I feel like he's going to be a well-used commodity across a number of the competitions, the prime time, the Fantasy Bros Showdown, the under 24, and then the 3 possible competitions that you can play him in across the regular round as well. So, yeah, I think that's a big one that people are going to have to make sure they get a hold of is that Toby Couchman card.
Bit of a man crush on Toby Couchman. I'll be getting 6 cards minimum to get into all of those 6 competitions. Actually, we can only play 5, can't we? What a shame. I'll still find a spot for him in a prime time, even when they're playing on a Sunday. Spot on. Dylan Egan is also a great player to get some cards of now. He won't be named anywhere near that team, given he's still out for about the first 2 to 3 months. So some coaches may be putting him up for trade or maybe be putting him up for sale on the transfer market nice and cheap. If you can spot a nice cheap Dylan Egan on the transfer market, gee, you want to lap that up pretty quickly because provided he can come back from that ACL pretty well, he's going to have a great mid to back end of this season and plenty more years in the NRL under his belt. Really excited, for both Toby Couchman, Dylan Egan, and Hamish Stewart as well, particularly to start the season before some of those troops come back.
Yeah, and for those that are new to Game Day Squad, remember it is a dynasty competition. So even someone like Dylan Egan, a couple of those under 24 players, even if they are injured at the moment and you do have those cards, you want to hold on to those because you're able to use those every year that they are playing in the NRL. So definite some opportunity there to get some cheaper cards potentially where people might not see some value in someone like Dylan Egan, who won't be back till, as you said, sort of round 8, 9, maybe even a little bit later. So definitely a good opportunity now for some new coaches to jump on and maybe see if there's a trade up there or maybe a really cheap card for Dylan Egan. Look, there's not a huge amount to talk about outside probably those 3 or 4 guys as well. So let's jump across and Toby Couchman, you did say he's the player that you've got a bit of a man crush on. So talk us through why Toby Couchman is your man this season.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because I've got a bit of a write-up, a lengthy write-up in that Fantasy Bros Rugby League textbook. But he was a bit of a revelation for Game Day Squad last season, wasn't he? Unfortunately, injury curtailed his season. And the Dragons just couldn't cope life without Toby Couchman. So they're going to be wanting the best out of him. So hopefully he's recovered well from that shoulder and those pec injuries and hopefully had a pretty nice, decent off-season and then a nice, strong preseason. He obviously played 20 minutes in that trial last week and he looked fine, but they didn't want to run him into the ground too much and give him too many minutes. But all signs look pretty promising for this season, recovering from those injuries. He averaged about 60 minutes. Sorry, when he averaged 60 minutes or more on the park last season, he was churning out 40 tackles and 106 run meters. And that is sort of elite base, comparable with the likes of Payne Haas and Isaiah Yeo. He broke just the 1.5 tackles and 1.2 offloads per game, which suggests the ceiling isn't quite as high as your Payne Haas and Terrell May. But it's definitely his work rate and his PPM that is going to make him a pretty easy play week in, week out. And like you said, if we've got 5 cards, I can definitely see some occasions where we're running out 5 Toby Couchmans. It's just the safety and the security that he provides. 60 minutes is unreal for him. He'll get through plenty of base, probably 50 to 55 in base before we factor in a couple of those offloads or tackle breaks. He even showed a bit of an aptitude for running some pretty nice lines. He had a nice line break once, threw a short ball to a front row forward partner as well. So he's definitely got a little bit of creative stats in him, which is you just love to see from a man wearing the 8 or 10. So yeah, look, I expect his minutes to stay at about 60. If we ever get a 65 to 70 Toby Couchman, he will be in the same conversation as an Isaiah Yeo, Payne Haas and Terrell May if he isn't already. We'll just temper our expectations slightly to start the season. 55 to 60 minute Toby Couchman is still going to get the job done. Only got positives to say about him.
And I guess that's where the conversation probably comes in. Most weeks you are going to play the Payne Haas, the Terrell May and the Isaiah Yeo combination in your midline. And then you've also got your bench forwards. And that's probably where, for me, Toby Couchman is probably going to come in quite a lot. We talk about our safe plays for fantasy and having that almost guaranteed 1 point per minute, whether he plays the 55 or 60, I think is going to be something that we're going to look for a lot of the times. And then that second bench spot potentially going to an edge back rower that we think is going to have a big game and probably going to have a little bit more of a ceiling. So at least we can bank on that 60. So I think, at the end of the day, the fact that he has changed position tags on GDS, I think it's a bit of a shame. It's not a cheat code like it once was, but I still think he's got plenty of value in him because of that consistency that you talked about, and then potentially that upside as well that we know that he's got a little bit of, and maybe he's developing that a little bit more as well. So we see a little bit more from him. I think he's one of the key players. Another player alongside him that I feel he's a bit of a forgotten man this season. Not that there's a huge amount of conversation going on around other centres, but I just feel like Val Holmes has sort of slipped by the wayside a little bit, and I don't really know why too much. And even when I was sitting here having a look at the Dragons, I thought there's not too much that Val Holmes did wrong, really. That last season, he finished with the second best average for when filtering by centres. He amassed an average of 53 GDS points per game, albeit it was only across the 14 games. He had the rotator cuff injury, which obviously hampered his season there. But it's what he did in those 14 games that I think that probably has me excited again. And maybe it is the injury at the back end of the season that people aren't looking at Val Holmes as much. He was averaging 45.5 GDS points in base and power due to those run meters, tackles, tackle breaks. And then the important part of that is obviously the goal kicking as well that Val Holmes has. He also able to rack up a whole lot of attacking stats. And the key for me is it's especially when he plays alongside his wing partner in Tuipulotu that he seems to have some success there as well. Val had 5 try assists in 6 games and then averaged 1 line break assist per game there as well. The downside, obviously, is we've spoken plenty of times about Val Holmes and his inability to tackle sometimes, and then his ability to also just force that ball a little bit too often and end up with a bit of an error. And so many coaches have experienced that. They'll know exactly what we're talking about. He had one game, I think, where he had 10 missed tackles in that game or 8 missed tackles, I think it was. And that just, that really blows out that score. You're losing 24, 30 GDS points just from some missed tackles, and it makes it really difficult to play him some weeks. But I think compared to previous seasons, he's actually improved on that game. I know the start of last season, we spoke heavily about his missed tackle rate to his tackle break. And we look at one of those, that ratio there as a bit of a metric to have a look at how we expect performance to happen. And he actually improved on that in the back end, at the start of last season. So he was able to break more tackles and miss less tackles. So if that ratio is positive, then I'm really happy to see that moving forward. And hopefully we just got to go in with that expectation that whatever we think Holmes is going to score, we take 10 points off that, and we're pretty happy with that final result if we take that 10 points off, knowing that he's going to miss a couple of tackles. So, yeah, I think he's a little bit of a forgotten man, but I think there maybe is a little bit of a reason behind due to his demerits.
Yeah, spot on. It is the demerits. We also, forget that he only played the 14 games last season, and I think it was the fact that there were so many other good centres that sort of broke out or put their hand up for selection in our game day squad teams last season, whereas, seasons prior, Val was the guy that you sort of just plugged in every single game just because of his attacking upside. He'd kick goals, he could find the try line or set up his winger. But now that we've got so many other good options, Herbie Farnworth was just an absolute revelation. Kaoliro, Taylor May in his return, even Katoni Staggs, Ruben Garrick, Bradman Best, Nick Meaney, all had really big games at times, all had really nice runs, and they came into consideration as well. And sometimes when you looked at that Dragons team and saw that they had a tough matchup on paper, it was really easy to sort of overlook a Val Holmes. But yeah, only a touchdown on his average from 2024. But in 2024, he scored, I think it was 14 tries, kicked 90 goals in 23 games. And it was just the 6 tries and 45 goals through 14 games. So if anything, the attack was down, but the average still remained just as consistent. Yeah. Val's certainly not any worse. He's not on the downward trend too much just yet. If anything, he's probably going to be underplayed. And if the Dragons look like they're a decent side early on, or if they've got a pretty decent matchup on paper, I think he could become a little bit of a pod, particularly when you know that people are going to be rolling out Herbie just about in every side possible. So there's really only that one extra centre spot. Do you run a Kaoliro, a Katoni Staggs, a Val Holmes? Yeah, that centre spot is going to be a hot topic of debate this season, I think.
Yeah, agreed. And that's what I guess I love about this, is that there is going to be some point of difference across a number of teams. It's not going to be a really simple set and forget for all coaches. So I really like that. The other thing, obviously, Val Holmes, he's going to feature quite a lot on the Sunday, the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. So I think that's going to be an important aspect to consider as well, that he's going to be one of those players that, has quite a few games. Alrighty, let's move on from the Dragons. I think we've talked way too much about the Dragons, considering their fantasy prospect. Let's move on to probably a much better looking team, albeit that they had some success, but not quite as much as what we hoped for probably last season. But we're thinking something a little bit different this season. Talk to us about the Roosters and what they're looking like this year, and some of those key ins and outs and notable role changes.
Yeah, they finished 8th on the ladder. They won 13. They lost 11. They're eliminated in that first round of the finals against the Sharkies. But look, their season was injury affected as well, particularly through the forwards. They had a lot of forwards going down at various times, missing games through injury, through concussion. They couldn't really get a consistent roll on with that pack. And Sammy Walker only had half a season as well. And he returned, it looked like he didn't miss a beat really after returning from that long layoff. And I think he's going to be even better next season after, getting through last season, a nice big preseason. And I think he'll be raring to go for 2026. He obviously partners as well. Daly Cherry Evans. Gee, that's a bit of a change, isn't it? From a Sandon Smith, Chad Townsend, a couple of key outs there from the Roosters. But when they've got a DCE coming back in, he might have lost his Maroons jersey. But look, he's still playing some pretty good footy, and he doesn't need to be Cherry Evans from 2011 through 2018. He just needs to do the right thing for this Roosters team and allow the likes of Sammy Walker, Teddy, and the exciting outside backs around him do their thing. And I think him and the addition of Reece Robson is certainly going to put a big claim in the Roosters, probably finishing top 4, and they're actually my pick for the title. They're obviously going to need a few things to go their way in terms of, that injury curse that always impacts every team, and usually it's the fittest team at the back end of the season that gets the chockies more often than not. So the biggest question mark for them is about their durability, particularly through their forwards. Their backs are just getting better and better, and they're exciting. James Tedesco still looks like he's in his mid to late 20s. Age isn't slowing him down. He probably won't have the same big season he had last year, but look, that season anyway. So I think their key ins trump their key outs. So that means that they're definitely due for a bit of improvement from 2025. Just some notable role changes that are pretty interesting. We've got Gussie Crichton talking about his departure at season's end over to rugby union. Does that mean, he is used any differently by Trent Robinson there? Does he get his full 80 minutes on that left edge with Sammy Walker? Does he get rotated through the middle? Is he a bit of an afterthought mid to late end of the season? Probably not, because they're such a good outfit that they'll probably just focus on this season and worry about his departure after that. But the big one for me is Connor Watson. With Reece Robson there, can easily go 80 minutes in the number 9 jersey. Connor Watson is just so good at hooker, at lock, and off the bench through the middle as a running interchange forward. He can play in the halves. He's even played at fullback once or twice before when necessary. He's just so good at so many different positions. When he's on the field, he absolutely kills it for your game day squad team, but it's just the question mark over minutes and role for me. I've got so many Connor Watson cards, and I love rolling him out when he's wearing that number 9 or 13. But if he's got a 14 on his back, or he's the 13 with, some big forwards on the bench, and he doesn't look like he's going to get super big minutes, it's going to be a bit frustrating, isn't it? But I think he's the biggest question mark. What's your read on Connor Watson, mate?
Yeah, I guess we've talked about a number of teams that have got this bit of a problem with their so many really good forwards that they've got to feed, and someone like a Connor Watson may see reduced minutes because of that. I just don't know where they're going to go. Suawong, Naf White, they've got Victor Radley bench, and I think he just misses the first game. We saw the other day he was part of a photo shoot and on his back. I just don't know where they're going to go with that. Connor Watson would be great at lock. If we can get Connor Watson in the 13 jersey, it would be a plug and play for me every week. But with the addition of the extended bench and how that's going to play out at the moment, Connor Watson, I'm actually putting a line through him because I just don't think he's going to be in that starting role. And him coming off the bench, I just don't know if we're going to get enough from it because of that additional 2 players that are now on the bench that can be used. And that just changes things up a little bit for me. If a player goes down in the forwards, are they going to bring Connor Watson in, or are they going to bring another big boy up? So I want to see it in action first before I make a decision on Connor Watson. But right at this moment, I'm putting a line through him, actually, to be honest, and just going to hope that maybe I'm wrong and he does get that 13 jersey, but I just don't see it being the case.
Yeah, and we could play him at hooker last year, couldn't we? So that's the big change, that if he was getting middle minutes as a hooker, someone running the footy, plenty of occasions, could find the try line, offload and tackle break. If you weren't confident on a hooker making 45, 50 tackles and running 50 metres, then he was a simple play in that hooker position. But he's got the middle tag now, doesn't he?
Yeah. So it's a bit more difficult. Reece Robson being there is going to make it a bit more difficult as well. We know Reece Robson can play 80, so maybe they don't have Connor Watson come on to that hooker role at all, so that reduces minutes too. I'm just really interested though, your take on DCE. You sort of said you'd like him to just come in and just sort of let Sammy Walker take over. Does that mean you're really not keen to play any DCE cards at all this season? Is that someone that you're just going to fade, even though he did come off another 52 GDS point average last season? Is that someone you're putting a line through as well?
Definitely early on. I think any half at a new team going to take a bit of time to gel. With Sammy Walker being so dominant and loving getting the ball in his hands, I don't know how they're actually going to to play when they're both really similar in terms of calling that hooker both sides of the ruck. Reece Robson's going to get a really sore neck having to look both sides so many times and make a decision on which way to pass. I just smart enough. He knows he's getting toward the end of his career. If it's to have a bit of longevity and extend a couple of extra seasons and go beyond what people might expect, it'll mean not overplaying his hand and not putting the body through what he has been doing in the past for Manly, because he's got with all due respect to Manly, probably a better side around him in terms of both backs and definitely with the forward pack. So it's not all reliant on Cherry Evans, particularly, I think when Tommy Turner only gets through 50 or 60% each season, and that there's far more pressure on Evans because he's the key man there. He's the man on all the money at Manly, and so they expect him to do everything. At the Sydney City Roosters, there's so much more balance across that team. that, he definitely doesn't need to overplay his hand. So line through him early on. Definitely not out of the picture because he can score well in a better attacking team. I just want to see what that looks like first and see how his combination with Sam Walker looks like. Look, really could have the best of both worlds, that Sammy Walker kills it on one side, but because the Roosters are so dominant with their forward pack going forward and always scheming around the back and outside behind the centre and the second rower, Cherry Evans could score plenty of points in that same way. The forwards could get down the field a lot easier and he can just run off the back of that. He loves getting the ball close to the line, putting a little kick in, going himself, or just throwing that short ball to the second rower. So his fantasy days definitely aren't over just yet. I want to see it first. Surprise me if he passes the keys over to Sammy Walker and Cherry Evans focuses a bit more on the organising and plenty of kicking because he's still got a decent boot on him.
Yeah, and I guess, from a fantasy coach perspective, I really hope that happens because Sammy Walker is one of our key under 24 eligible players. And I think, if he has a big season, I think he's going to be one of those halves that we pick almost every week in that under 24 team. And hopefully he does take over that lead role at the Roosters and he has a massive season. And look, the other thing you touched on is James Tedesco being a year older. I think every season we've written him off to an extent. Based on his age, but we know that he has one of the most, in-depth and consistent rehab routines each and every week at his own house. We've talked to him quite a lot about that. Are we going to write him off this season again? I know you said you don't think he's going to have as good a season, but I just don't see any reason why not. He's got some really good halves around him. As you say, he loves to scheme around that. The ruck and sort of look for some opportunities. He loves to run the ball sideways and break about 4 tackles, running 80 metres across the field. I think there's probably every opportunity he has another big season on the back of the signing of Reece Robson as well. I think that's just going to help James Tedesco and that go forward and then the halves and get the ball out wide where James can always have that sweep around the back or, look for that short ball as well. So I'm really keen to watch James Tedesco. He's going to be one of those players that we probably play most weeks in terms of both that full round, but then also the prime time. They've got 14 games, which is equal most in the competition across the season in the prime time. So he's going to be someone that I think is going to be super important for you to win that opportunity at $1,000 before the weekend has even started.
Yeah, I think we all had a right to see a bit of a regression for Teddy in terms of his fantasy numbers. In 2023, he averaged 52.7 GDS points. He got through 20 games, so he sort of thought a line of Tedesco, still just above the 50. We'd probably expect him to hover around there or probably creep, just below the wrong side of 50 at some point as well. But gee, you put those sort of whispers to bed and reignited his career with that average of above 60 in 2024. And then only a couple of points down to an average of just shy of 60 last season. So, that 2023 average of 53, a bit of an outlier, really, when you look at it. And he's definitely proven that he's got plenty more juice left in the tank. And I think there's going to be a lot of talk around that team that, with Cherry Evans there, with Reece Robson there. Teddy's getting older. He won't be able to keep putting his body through what he does each and every round. If they have a real shot at the premiership title, it's probably this year or next. So Teddy's going to have to have a big season if they're going to be somewhere around that top 4 and a premiership contender. So definitely one big season left for James Tedesco. Plenty of primetime matches. You just know that he's such a competitor. He doesn't go hiding, doesn't go missing. The Roosters could lose 22-4 against the Panthers, and Teddy can still get 55 or 60 GDS points because he's run 212 meters. He's broken 12 tackles, no tries, no try assists, no line break assists, but just, all through a sheer amount of volume and work because he rips in for 80 minutes for his team. I don't expect that to be any different. Maybe the body's going to take a bit more of a toll each and every week, but they'll manage that well. I think he'll be a great play for a lot of matches, and fingers crossed he can stay injury-free.
I actually think there's a correlation between the up season or the down season of 2023, being signed as the face of GDS, and then having the up season of
A lot of pressure.
2024, I think that's what helped him out. So I think that gave him that little bit of confidence that he needed to get back to that 60 GDS points. Good on James Tedesco. Alrighty, let's jump across to the players that we want to highlight. And mate, you've got a really good winger that may not be around in rugby league too much longer. Talk to me about Nwaka Nituazi.
Yeah, disappointing. So many of our rugby league superstars are chasing some World Cup rugby union glory, or maybe even some Olympic glory. But good on them. Look, if they're good enough, then so be it. Yeah, gee, that right side of the field, linking up with Cherry Evans now, both Nwanga Nituazi and Rob Toya, that's going to be a really exciting combination for them. Again, look, Noah teased myself and a lot of other GDS coaches last season. He scored 23 tries in 23 games, but he still averaged sub 50. Saw him finish as the fourth best averaging winger, but that was when he scored double the amount of tries than those three wingers ahead of him. So, look, his work rate isn't quite there, but the athleticism certainly is. And I think with the addition of Reece Robson and Daly Cherry Evans, we've made no secret of that. We think that's going to be a big boost for them in terms of their attacking output. They're going to be a very dangerous attacking side, even better than seasons gone past, you would have to imagine. And as a result of that, there's just going to be increased opportunities for Nwanga Nituazi to find the try line. But even just something as simple as the 6 again rule, where they're not blowing penalties within the 40 now. The penalties are just being blown within the 20. So there's going to be a few more 6 agains. If the Roosters are a bit of a fitter team, they're going to get a bit of a roll on, and they're going to be too good against some of those other sides and finish down the left or the right channels. And that's when Nwanga Nituazi makes something happen out of nothing. He only needs half a step and half a meter to put a jink on or a kick in behind, and he's likely to end up in some points because he plays with so much speed and so much freakish ability, and they keep sort of going to him and giving him half chances with, chips to the corner or long cutout passes, or passing to him with, a meter squared bit of room to run in. Naturally, he's going to make some errors, and I think those demerits are what does bring that average down. But look, when the Roosters have a favourable matchup, when the weather's clear and they look like they're going to put on some points, if you don't have Nwanga Nituazi in your team, it's going to be a bit of a dangerous look, because we've seen he can score tries in patches. And if they exploit something down that right-hand channel, particularly with Cherry Evans, you're even going to see Sammy Walker loop around that side of the field as well. And we've seen him throw a number of Sydney Harbour Bridge passes from that left to right part of the field, where Nwanga Nituazi just needs a step or two outside of his winger, and he'll make something happen. So, yeah, look, I think wheels up for a lot of Roosters players, particularly Toya and Nwanga Nituazi on the right there outside of Cherry Evans. Just need to make sure that combination with the halves from Cherry Evans, with Tedesco, some good players in there. Hopefully not all four of them are fighting over the footy and getting in each other's way. We do know that sometimes too many cooks in the kitchen isn't a good thing. Yeah, look, we've said the Roosters are going to improve from last season. They're going to score more points. If Nwanga Nituazi scores more than 25 tries this season, it wouldn't shock me. I think he can go more than one try per match. 1.1, 1.2 would be a nice season for him, I think.
Yeah, definitely. You just have to go back to how many try of the year tries did he score? I think he had 3 or 4, but the one individual one where he chipped over the top and regathered, that was just something that was probably the most freakish thing I've ever seen from a rugby league player. And I guess there's still elements of some defensive work that he needs to work on coming over from rugby union, where those structures are a little bit different. He still, there was a little bit of inconsistency there with some of the defensive work. As a result, as you said, some of those demerits hurt him a little bit with the missed tackles. But, as a winger, you don't have to make too many. It's just some of that decision making on the back end of a back move from the opposition. But hopefully he's worked on that in the off season. And again, another player who leaving very soon from the competition, but hopefully he can have a big season, and the Roosters can make sure that they get the whole team together, and just a bit like Angus Crichton, making sure they're getting behind their players so they can have that push for the premiership. As you say, they're probably one of the premiership favourites at the moment based on everything they've done. up into this point in terms of their signings, etc. And again, I'll talk about, Reece Robson being there as well and how that might impact Naf White. I guess I talked a little bit about it earlier, but Naf White's someone that I think had quite a breakout season probably last year. And he ended up with a 51 GDS points per game average. And I think for me, though, I'm tempering my expectations just a little bit and having a bit of a watch and wait for Naf White. I really love the way that he plays. I love his style of play. And I personally think he could be someone that is similar in gameplay to someone like Payne Haas or Tyrrell May. He's got that body for it. He's got that game style for it. We just probably need to see a little bit more from him. The benefit is he's in that under 24 group of players, so he is eligible for that. So if you don't maybe want to play him each and every round, you can definitely play him in that under 24 comp. At this stage, I think White's going to don that 13 jersey and play in the lock. But like I said, Reece Robson playing hooker, we might see Connor Watson playing at lock, so that might just reduce the likelihood of me wanting to play Naf White. If he's coming off the bench, I'm not really keen on him. If he does get that 13 jersey, though, I probably wouldn't expect an 80-minute performance, and that's probably where we need to temper expectations a little bit. At the back end of 2025, Naf played 6 games starting at lock, including the finals performance, that one game that they did play. He averaged 52.5 minutes across those 6 games. He did, however, rack up base and power stats, averaging almost 50 as well. So really close to that 1 point per minute just from base and power stats. So again, for those new coaches, base and power, tackles, run meters, tackle breaks is kind of one of the metrics we look at. And I think that was a really good, result for Naf White owners, where he was only getting that 50-ish to 52 minutes, 55 minutes, but he was still returning almost 1 point per minute in base. As a result, his final scores were that 1 point per minute, which is exactly what we want. The problem we face is that uncertainty around the new bench rules that I talked about, the 6 men on the bench, with 4 available, how that's going to be utilised, what that's going to look like. Victor Radley is going to come back into the side very soon. We've got a number of mouths to feed at the Roosters, and it's just going to be that watch and wait, I think, to see where Naf White is named and how many minutes he gets. The positive is that James Tedesco at the season launch at the beginning of last season did speak really highly of Naf White and how much he saw some really, future performances in him and really wanted him to do well. So I expect the Roosters to probably invest quite heavily in the young bloke, considering they've got a couple of guys that are going to be leaving and a couple of guys that are getting a little bit older. I think Naf White's going to be one that they turn to majority of the time, but just whether it happens at the start of the season, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with the under 24 shout. Only one of 2 players to average over 50 last season of under 24 eligible players this year, both him and Toby Couchman on the positive side of 50. So, yeah, that competition, Naf White is going to be a bit of a staple, you would have to imagine. It's just, they've got a big, strong pack. Look, if everyone's fit and firing, they've got the likes of Leniu, Collins, Crichton, Wong, White, Watson, Steep, Butcher, ×2, Fiketti, Victor Radley. Some massive names there. And Naf White's not the only good up and start. Didn't we see some big signs out of Steep and Fiketti last year as well? So, yeah, you might say from the Roosters, how do they use those middles? And 6-man bench, if Naf White does get named as a 14 and looks like the guy on the bench, it's still going to bring question marks around. If the Roosters pack is at full strength and he does find himself in the bench, in the past we've seen him play 50 minutes from the bench and sometimes even outscore his PPM or his points from the bench because he's had 20 minutes off the field and then plays a nice solid 40 or 50 straight. It's just so different this season that I don't think we could ever really take that gamble until we see something that seems to be happening week in, week out. We want to see the number 13 jersey on his back, but we just spoke about wanting to see that on Connor Watson's back as well. Unfortunately, can't wear the same jersey. Whoever is wearing it definitely gets a big bump. But yeah, when Radley comes back, does he, shift into the 12? And then where does Sua Wong sit? Is he above Naf White on that pecking order? Because he's shown a lot of promise and had some pretty big games as well, albeit not as sort of impactful as Naf White. But I think looked like he was being transitioned to the middle a little bit more frequently last season as well. So, yeah, look, Trent Robinson has a pretty big job ahead of him. I think we've got plenty of options early on anyway through that middle forward position. If Naf White can become a staple in that under 24 comp, though, I think him and Toby Couchman are going to put up some massive numbers, and then we can look for some upside plays around both of them.
Yeah, I like the play. Just quickly on the spot, if you had to choose one, who would you rather have in the lock role from a fantasy perspective? Would you rather White or would you rather Watson?
It'd be Connor Watson. I think he just has a bit more of a dynamic, a more powerful game. We've seen Naf White score tries in matches, which is obviously very handy. I don't know. Connor Watson just strikes me as that guy that breaks a bit more tackles, offloads. They'll probably get through some decent base, not just at the club, but as well. So if he needs big minutes, he'll over Naf White. But yeah, good question. Where do you sit with that one?
Yeah, I think I'm the same as you. I like the versatility that Watson has as well. We've seen him play in a few different positions across the park in the past. So I think if he gets named at 13, he might not necessarily stay there for the whole game as well, which I quite like. We've seen him in attack. We've seen him play in that hooker role. So I like that versatility there. So I think, for at least this season, I think Connor Watson. But if Naf White does get that the nod for the lock role at 13, I think it's going to be a difficult decision to not play him in some competitions. But yeah, definitely in that under 24 for sure. Alrighty, let's move on. Let's finish off the full team preview for 2026 with the West Tigers. Mate, talk us through the hapless West Tigers, I want to call them, I think. Talk to us about
them. Yeah, they had obviously all the Lachlan Galvin stuff going on last season, and they should have been better than that. But 13th position on the ladder is not a good season for them. Did show, some promise at times, particularly with their young backline, who can put, some decent matches together. There's just no real consistency through that backline, and with the forward pack as well, pretty poor. Other than obviously Terrell May, was just an absolute beast. I think he got through 72.5 minutes per match for them. That's just way too much for a big middle forward. Someone else has to roll their sleeves up and do some work around him. Look, I think they've got a really good signing here in Kai Pearce-Paul. I think that's going to make a big difference for them on that right-hand side of the field. And I think he and Terrell May are certainly going to, probably become sort of the Bash brothers there at the Tigers. We got someone through the middle, and then being able to run at the smaller hubs and outside back. So I think Kai Pearce-Paul is a great addition for them. And their only real loss is Talon De Silva, and we saw that he had a bit of an odd season as well. So not a big loss for Talon. They lost him partway through the season anyway. But the surprising thing is that even though they were that poor, they've still got plenty of fantasy relevant players, not just their big list of under 24 players that include Jareem Buller, Taruva, Samuela Fainu, Latu Fainu, and even Fanua Pole. They would be a really interesting play this season. And I know you're pretty excited about his prospects. Do you want to talk through your thoughts on Adam Doueihi and what you see his role looking like this season at the Tigers?
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away because we've said it a couple of times. I've actually got a bit of a write-up about Adam Doueihi in the textbook. But I think the big thing for me is he's currently got the centre tag in positions on GameDay squad. But there's a little bit of potential for him to be playing that lock role where we've kind of alluded to it a few times. And if that is true and he does get that 13 jersey, I think it's almost a cheat code, and it's a lock and load each and every week. If he can get plenty of minutes through the middle and plenty of tackles and hit-ups through that base, we know he's got some attacking prowess as well. He's played in the halves, he's played in the centres, he can do it all. And we've seen some really good performances from him across those positions. I just think having that opportunity to play through the middle, I think it's going to be a little bit of a safety net for my centre. It could be as easy as playing Farnworth and Doueihi each and every week if that's going to be the case. So I really like that. And yeah, as I said, there is a big write-up about it in the textbook. So make sure you get your hands on the textbook. We are very close to releasing that. Hopefully this weekend might be a launch date. We'll see how we go. But yeah, I'm really keen on Adam Dewey and what we might be able to see. What you'll also see in that textbook, we've actually done a deep dive into some weather impact on GDS scoring for last season. And he's actually one of those players that score really well in the wet. I don't know what it is about Adam Dewey, but maybe he's a little bit more safe and he doesn't take as many risks. And we just have to go back to that. I think it was the Bulldogs game, Tigers Bulldogs Sunday afternoon. It was in a absolute hailstorm almost. It was like a swimming pool. And Adam Dewey, I think, ended up scoring 2 tries in that game just by running the ball at the line and breaking tackles. So if we can see that through the middle, that's just going to be unreal.
Yeah, he played halfback, lock, centre, and 5'8" last season. But the round 21 and round 20 matches at lock sort of looked like that's where they wanted to go with Dewey. Average 60 minutes across those would trend as you'd imagine, playing it with the number 13 on his back. He made up for that well and truly through his workload. Still got through 34 tackles in both matches, averaged about 85 run meters. But with the extra hands on the ball through the middle, he was able to be a little bit more creative. Still fell off a couple of tackles though. But if we can get a 60-minute Adam Dewey, about 50 GDS points just through base, and you'd expect some of the attack to come eventually when he warms into that role. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced it happens. From a selfish perspective, gee, we'd love to see that happen. We love our out of position players. If we can get a 60-minute number 13 who lines up in the center, although that's going to make our center pick so much trickier, which just opens up more and more pods for coaches. I think we need more of them, those out of position weapons, don't we, to make things a little bit more exciting. But no, look, he's another player that just plays with absolute heart all day long. The Tigers are losing by a long margin, but you know that someone's working hard the whole match, and it's typically Adam Dewey as well. He'll keep working hard. He might make errors and miss tackles, but he's definitely not going to go missing, and that's evident in a lot of his work. His floor is pretty decent, just doesn't have that massive ceiling unless there's an absolute hurricane. So we need a lot more rain down in Sydney, and then we can get some big 80+ scores from Dewey.
And the positive, I guess, as well, you did talk about the kicking meters being down, but he does kick goals. So that obviously, if we can get 3 or 4 goals from him each and every game, we expect the West Tigers to be a bit better in attack this season. So if we can get that from him, there's sort of 9 points additionally on top of whatever we can get as well. The interesting thing is, if you do ever watch Adam Dewey live on ground, watch his routine after he's finished kicking. Once he's had his kick at goal, when he returns to his side of the field, he actually goes outside the field before crossing over halfway. He's got some kind of superstition about not running over halfway. So it's really weird, and he does it every single time. You'll never unsee that now. You're welcome. Let's talk about a couple of under 24 players. Obviously, we've talked quite a bit about a number of players elsewhere. Super important as well for the FantasyBros Sunday Showdown. They've got 11 games on the Sunday / Monday games. That's equal second most. But let's talk about some under 24 players. Out of those listed there, who do you think is going to have the biggest performance? Who do you think is going to be the one that you target most weeks?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I found that really tough to sort of pinpoint a really good either back for the Sunday Showdown or an under 24 eligible player. I think their upside comes from the forward pack, whether it's Terrell May, Kai Pearce-Paul, or maybe even an Api Coruscant when the hooker position is pretty thin. I find it really difficult to find a West Tigers back that's going to be consistently good. I think whenever I've tried to play a Jareem Buller, it's come back to bite me. And then when you think he's got a tough matchup, he all of a sudden finds 2 tries, one from 40 out, and sets up another one. So I think Jareem Buller has the biggest ceiling out of any of those outside backs or under 24 eligible players. So to answer your question, it would be him. Maybe this is the season that we find a little bit more consistency from him, where he doesn't go missing. Look, a 41 average isn't horrible, but it's not great either when you compare that to a number of other fullbacks as well. Is there going to be an upward trend? Surely you'd expect that, particularly if we expect the Tigers to be a little bit better. So, yeah, it'll be Dream Buller. But, look, I don't think I'd ever be confident to play him unless they're, massive favourites against a depleted, maybe Knights team on a Sunday afternoon with the sun shining. Maybe he's somehow magically got the kicking tee because that would definitely make it a lot easier. He definitely provides the most excitement from that list. I just can't see it happening too frequently, which is probably going to scare me off it more often than not.
Yeah, and when you've got so many good options in that back position, although, the back role for the under-24 competition where it's a little bit in the way that it's structured. We've got the likes of Reece Walsh that we've already talked about quite extensively. Ko Weeks, your man. We've got a number of options there. Yeah, for me, Dream Buller, as you said, 41 average. Ceiling, I don't know if his ceiling is as high as we expect. He only scored, what did he have? 2 games at 63 and 1 game at 64 last season were his highest scores for GDS. Scoring. So it's not a huge ceiling, whereas we saw, we could talk about Reece Walsh all day and the 100 average in the last 5 games where his ceiling is so much higher. So I think, for me, it's, hopefully for the Tigers fans, Dream Buller can change that around a little bit and he can become a bit more of an attacking upside in their team. But for me, it's probably someone that I'm not super keen on as well at the moment. We could see that change. And you're right. I don't think anyone else there jumps out at the page. Off the page straight away at me. So it's probably better to look at our opportunities and look at matchups where we can. So let's jump across to our 2 players that we're really keen on. And we're just keen on the same player this time. We've both gone T. No. Talk to us about Tyrrell May. You've gone the easy one. I've gone the hard one.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Talon. But look, I started the team previews with a pretty obvious pick in Payne Haas. So I'm going to finish the team previews. I'm going to bookend it with another pretty obvious or a no-brainer pick in Tyrrell May. Look, like Haas, May offers one of the best floor-to-ceiling ratios among middle forwards due to his consistent workload through plenty of runs, tackles, offloads, and tackle breaks. Meaning even when the Tigers are getting flogged, which, look, let's face it, might happen more often than not this season, he can still score big. Look, he's immune to game script. If anything, a blowout just means he's going to be working even harder, maybe making more and more tackles and trying not to play the ball, just always throwing an offload when he's going to ground just to try to spark something for his team. He led the entire competition last season in offloads with 66, and he was one of just 3 players to make more than 1,000 tackles for the season, finishing second with 1,023 tackles, which is 50 points behind Blake Brayley. Obviously, a lot of durability. There was a big call for him to be selected in State of Origin, so that will probably occur again this season. But the coaching staff there showed that they were pretty happy to look past him, particularly when he had a few, choice words to say on his stream when he was playing COD or whatever it was. So I'm fine with Tyrrell May not running out in a sky blue jersey. It just means one less thug there in the Blues pack, but also one extra game each Origin affected round for one Team A in the forward pack. His motor was just absolutely insane. 72.5 minutes per match. He barely looked tired. He probably could play 80 minutes if he wanted to. And whenever he came off, he probably gave the coach a bit of a stare down and go, "What are you doing? Put me out there for the last few minutes." I think that minutes is going to have to dip. I certainly can't see it going up. I don't think it's in his best interest to be rolling him out for that long, particularly when there is, no chance of them making a comeback. Obviously, he loves being out there playing his football, but from a coaching point of view, 72.5 minutes for a middleman making so much work, both tackling and being tackled. Probably going to be the opposite side of 70, probably closer maybe to 65. That's not going to change his average or his output too much whatsoever. It might even mean he just rips in slightly harder because he knows he's going to get, a 7 or 10 minutes extra rest time on the bench and even come back out late on if required. So, yeah, I think because we're going to expect to see 40 tackles, 150 run meters per game, that's just going to become the norm for Tyrrell May. We saw it so often last season. I think loading up your salary on Tyrrell May and Payne Haas in a challenger or a classic competition is going to be a pretty obvious or a pretty key play for a lot of GDS. And look, they've got the round 1 bye. If a lot of coaches want to sort by averages to pick their round 2 team, there's a sneaky chance that he could be forgotten about by some players. I don't think so, but if we love to sort by averages, he won't be there. It just means that he could be a slight pod for round 2, but I think he's definitely going to be a must on a Sunday. He's going to become, I think, the Sunday superstar.
Oh, yes, indeed. Look, just on his minutes, you talk about potentially him being under 70 odd minutes. He played 6 games under 70 minutes last season, and he still averaged 40 tackles and 160 running meters in those games under 70 minutes. So I don't think we need to have an 80-minute Tyrrell May to get exactly what we needed out of him. And the tough part is going to be needing to have as many Tyrrell May cards as possible so that you can play him across a range of the competitions, particularly on that Sunday showdown. Alrighty, now on to the other Team A. And yeah, like I said, you had the easy one, Stu. I've got a little bit more of a difficult one. And I think I won't say, because I know we've said it a couple of times on this show and others, but I actually spend quite a bit of time in the textbook talking about Taylor May and why I really like him this season. So there is an extensive write-up there. So make sure that you jump onto our website and download that textbook when it is available for release. Look, I'm going to break some news now. I haven't spoken to you, Stu, but I'm just going to break some news, make the executive decision. We're going to have the NRL, the AFL textbooks available. They are going to be $20 each. If you purchase one of those, you get the second for half price. That is 50% off the second textbook. Plus, GDS are throwing in $20 worth of GDS packs as well for anyone that purchases the textbook. So that's 3x9 common packs. Plus, I'll give you one more thing if you purchase that textbook. I'll give you an entry into our massive player card giveaway that we've been doing all preseason as well. So make sure you get your 5 entries in across these team previews, plus you get a 6th if you purchase the textbook. $30, 2 textbooks, 6x9 common packs, and 2 additional entries into that giveaway. You'd be silly not to. Look, okay, sorry for all of that plug. I'm going to move back to Taylor May. For me, he is shaping up as maybe one of the best centre options this season. And people who have watched this show and watched us long enough know that I can have a pretty spicy take and I make some pretty outrageous claims sometimes. But I feel like based on his 2025 performance, if he can replicate that, I think he's going to have a really good season. Obviously, he joined the Tigers late in the back end of the season. He averaged with the Tigers 40 GDS points in base and power. There are only a handful of centres that were matching or slightly better than that. Obviously, Herbie Farnworth was well and above with close to 50 GDS points in base and power. But then it was a perfect platform for Taylor May to be able to launch into that 60 or 80 performance. He scored 4 tries in 7 matches for the Tigers last season, and I really expect that sort of trend to continue. If he has that same sort of similar attacking ability that he had, breaking tackles, little offloads here and there, when necessary, and then his ability to score. I think there was one game at Leichhardt Oval against the Cowboys where he just took 4 blokes over the line with him, and he dotted the ball down quite easily. So if we can see more of that, I think he's going to have a massive season. He can break tackles. He broke an average of 5 per game. If you can do that again, I think it's going to be wheels up. The thing I love is that he doesn't really like to pass the ball very often either. So he's one of those centres that he's scoring more times than he's setting tries up, which is great to see. And if we see that again, I think we're going to get double-digit tries from him. With a 40 base and power, plus the try-scoring ability, I think it's going to be a really good season for Taylor May.
Yeah, I don't think as spicy as a Alex Johnston or a Will Kennedy take. We saw enough from Taylor May at the end of last season for him to show that, he is definitely going to be someone that we would need to consider, provided that that structure remains the same. It was almost as though they were wanting to force feed that left-hand edge and just give him the footy. He was fresh. He hadn't, put his body through the same amount of footy as anyone else in that side. So it was almost like they were deliberately moving that ball there and saying, carry some blokes into the end zone and score some points for us. Not just the 4 tries in 7 matches, but 3 try assists as well. So the ball was clearly going down that way, and they had an obvious plan to get him involved. And 5 tackle breaks per match is pretty insane, and that's up there with a lot of the other dangerous tackle breaking bests, alongside sort of Teddy, Herbie Farnworth. Obviously, Tigers aren't going to be as, attacking dominant as those two sides, but when he can put up base numbers like that with some definite upside for finding the try line or creating something, gee, who would have thought we'd be rolling out 2 Team A's in more than just one team? Is that a possibility?
Alrighty, and that brings us to the end of our team previews. Well, we've got through 5 episodes, and I am just pumped for the rest of the season. As always, new users, you can still sign up using that promo code FBRL26. You get 3 9-player common packs. Also, if watching this show, you think, I need some more cards, what can I do? We've got something for you as well. Each and every episode, we open a 9-player unique, and there we put any cards from the team that we've previewed into the giveaway pool that we are going to be giving away on our first live show with the Vegas games just around the corner. This time, as Stu said at the top of the show, we're not just putting in today's teams, not just the Tigers, the Roosters or the Dragons. We are putting in every single team that we have previewed so far. So it means all 9 cards, no matter what they are. Could be a legend, could be a couple of diamonds, whatever it is going straight into that giveaway pool. For you to be able to enter that giveaway pool, all you need to do is like and subscribe on the FantasyBros YouTube page. Make sure you like this video, comment who your MVP player is from this team preview. So that is either the Tigers, Roosters, or Dragons players, and you'll be in the draw straight away. As I said as well, up to 5 entries across the 5 preseason shows that we've done. We've got a show next week that we'll be talking about it in a moment. Plus, if you purchase that textbook, you'll get an additional entry into that draw. As I said, we're going to draw that on our first live round preview. Alrighty, let's jump into our pack. And hopefully, like we said, we've got a really good one today. Here we go. Unique pack.
All right, give us that big animation.
Might need to do my spin, my left-handed press. Probably not the animation we were looking for. Now this might have to be a pack refund. All right, we've got a Tui Pelotu to begin us off. Platt, we've got a Moses Suli. Maybe we just get all Dragons in this one. We've got Blaze Talangi from the Panthers, Platinum as well. A Leilua from the Dragons. We've got see that. It is so same. Lua Moana from the Knights. We've got a Tamale. Jai Arrow, Sammy Walker that we talked about. There's another big write-up about Sammy Walker in our textbook. That's a plat. And we finished one more plat. We've got Joe Tarpany. So some decent players in there, some definite players that you'll want in your side. I think we might have to go back to the drawing board as well, Stu, and we might have to add a few more cards to the player pool.
I had the exact same thought.
What do you think?
Yeah, happy with that.
We'll have a look at what we've got, and we might add a few more. Keep an eye out on Discord as well as Instagram to see all of the cards that are in the player pool as we update them. We'll be putting up a post very soon. That brings us to the end of our team preview episodes. We are going to be bringing a very special preview of the under-24 competition. We're going to do something that we've never done before. It's going to be a very different show, the way that we go ahead and look at these under-24 players. I'm pretty excited. It should be something a bit of fun and a little bit different. So make sure you tune in for that. That's going to be middle of next week that will come out, hopefully on the Wednesday as our usual, as we build up to the usual live shows happening every Wednesday as well. Don't forget, we're going to have our first live show the Wednesday before the Vegas weekend. So that's going to be a massive weekend as well. And then we're also going to have our textbook releasing, as I said, hopefully this weekend, if not early next week. So keep an eye on all of our socials. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Thank you very much for an unreal preseason so far, Stu. It's been great. I'm looking forward to a massive season this year. Thanks, mate. Thanks everyone.
Jill. Can't wait. See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode by the Fantasy Bros. If you want to show your support, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure you check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search @FantasyBros AU.